Hey everyone, my name is Ciera Harris. I am the author behind Ciera Harris Teaching, and we're going to be talking all about misconceptions about teaching reading. And I've got 4 big misconceptions that I would like to chat about with you, and I want your opinion and your feedback on these misconceptions as well. So we're going to jump in. We're going to be talking about misconception number 1, which is huge. Are you ready for it? Answering questions is enough to gauge comprehension. So that right there is worded as a misconception, meaning answering questions is not enough to gauge comprehension. So let's dig into this one for a second, okay? All right, so here's the big thought. Did you know that retelling, so retelling a story, is actually the bottom-most level of comprehension understanding? Bottom level, like can't go any far below that. If your student can retell the story, that is bottom level comprehension. And that, when I first heard that, I was mind blown because I thought, they can retell the story, they clearly understand it. No, they're retelling the story. That means they're good at regurgitating, which I hate that word, by the way, regurgitating information in sequential order. It does not mean they have a deep, comprehensive understanding of that text. So it's true. Just because a reader can read and repeat the basic pieces of a text, that doesn't mean that they can comprehend it at all. This information is superficial in most cases. That, what they're retelling is the superficial information. Now, there may be an important piece every now and then that they retell while they're retelling, but most of it's going to be superficial. The true purpose of that text hasn't been and cannot be uncovered simply by repeating story elements and basic events. You're not going to get to that deep level just by repeating. This is why programs such as Accelerated Reader, some of you I know probably use that. You may even love it. I'm sorry, I do not. Programs such as Accelerated Reader and other reading programs that are similar to that, they can't actually depict a child's reading ability because those questions are so surface level, okay? So it's okay to ask these types of questions in moderation. All right, there's going to be a time and place for some basic questions. However, you want to follow up that. You want to follow it by or connect it to a more rigorous or a deeper question that will expose the true meaning of a text. Okay, maybe you ask those questions because you're leading up to a deeper question. Or let's just save time. Why ask them in the first place? Let's just ask that deeper question. Okay, when a student truly comprehends a text, they should be able to apply reading strategies to that text, okay, and participate in conversations about that text. They should be able to express connections that they've made while reading. They should be able to draw their own conclusions in the story. And comprehension or actual making meaning of the story is their goal, is always the goal, okay? So what that means is you as the teacher, we as the teachers, we want to focus our time on strategies that build the students' deeper understanding of the text, such as activating prior knowledge, right? Schema is so important. Building their schema, utilizing their metacognition, and so many other strategies, right? All right, so let's keep going. We are ready for misconception number 2, and that is that reading skills make readers more successful. I will give you a 2-second rundown. Basically, strategies involve the reader, okay? Skills don't. Skills are after the fact. You do them after you read, and they do not involve the reader at all. Like main idea. I have nothing to do with the main idea. That's all text, right? Text structure, that's all text. Visualizing, asking questions, making connections, metacognition, using schema. These are all strategies that involve me. So to ensure that we are building active readers, strategies actually are more or make readers more successful. But here's the thing, right? We are faced in a world where standardized tests and curriculum designers, what they do is they fill our curriculums with skills. And the reason is they're easier to assess. I can assess main idea and author's purpose and fact and opinion and text structure and text features and characters and plot. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my list of all the skills over there. Basically anything behind me right now, all of those are all skills. They can be assessed so easily because they're about the text. But in order to comprehend, it's the reader who has to make the meaning. It's the reader who has to be able to draw his or her own conclusions about the story. It's the reader who has to be the one that's actively thinking. So it's not the text, it's a combination of the text and the reader. Strategies need to be the emphasis. All right, that's where you're going to make sure that your students are becoming those active thinkers.
Hey everyone, so sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure that you are loving the content coming from Ciera Harris Teaching on YouTube. So make sure if you are loving this to subscribe and also like and comment below. I would love to hear from you.
So we are on number 3 of 4, so we have 2 more left, and we are on misconception number 3, which is, are you ready? Lower readers have lower cognitive abilities than normal readers. Let's dig into this one. This is a big one. Okay, so when we have readers, right, in our classroom, we always have a variety of levels. We know it doesn't matter. Every year students come in, you're going to have the, lows and you're going to have the crazy highs, and you're going to have everything in between, right? Very rarely do we have a very average type class, a very on-level class. So with our lower readers, it's not their cognitive abilities that are lower in most cases. Now you will have some students, yes, that is the case, and then you're going to have support for those, right? But what happened is it's that the connections that they have built when they're reading in their brains is completely different. So what's happening in their brains is different than what's happening in your average student's brains. Since literacy starts at such a young age, what happens is many times our lower readers have different exposures to text. And we know that, right? We know that literacy is so important at a young age. And they have different experiences, they have different exposure that change the course of their understanding of literacy. So basically, teachers need to take steps backwards, right, to see where these underlying holes are that are, and then we need to proceed to be able to build or rebuild and fill in those holes, okay? And then this is even more important. So there's a book out there called The Knowledge Gap. Let me know in the comments if you've read this. What The Knowledge Gap is, and it's a fantastic read. If you have not read it, I highly recommend it. So, but another factor to consider with these lower students with lower cognitive abilities, that's the misconception, by the way, is the knowledge gap. And sometimes it's referred to as the achievement gap. So we have from school to school, from student to student, right? There is some large discrepancies in achievement. Many educators believe that this is a difference due to abilities. Like some students have better, higher abilities than others. But in fact, it's actually due to a knowledge gap. So students who come from the lower economic homes tend to have fewer, right, or different life experiences than students in average or upper economic homes. So the difference isn't in their abilities. They have the same abilities. And this is another reason why schema is so important. Like I want to get it tattooed on my forehead, right? So this is a difference between life experience. It becomes the knowledge gap. The gap is, unfortunately, what truly causes the difference in achievement from school district to school district. It's not that these students are not don't have the same ability. They are just coming with a completely different set of knowledge. And the knowledge that our curriculums are designed from, unfortunately, is the knowledge of your average, typical, you know, income homes, right? That's what they're basing it off of, not the other end. So that's where automatically we are giving the students who are in those average and upper economic homes, they're already off to a greater ability because they are giving curriculum that is designed for and based upon the fact that they've had different life experiences and exposures than students who come from lower economic homes. Research shows us, without a doubt, schema is the most important tool that your students bring to a book, period. And so if your students are constantly unable to access schema because they don't have it to access, then yes, it's going to set them further and further and further behind. So it's not an ability gap, it's a knowledge gap. All right, so we're ending. Number 4, we're on our last one, friends. This one, I always get applauses when I say this one. Teachers need or have to differentiate to meet the needs of all their students. That is the misconception, meaning they don't need to differentiate to meet the needs of all their students. So differentiation doesn't have to happen in order for support for all students to take place. Actually, to lay it all out there, too much differentiation can actually slow down progress for a lot of students. So how does this happen? Let's break this down. So when teachers differentiate, they are actually doing what they think is best for students, right? We all have the best interest for our students. We're trying so hard to meet the needs of all of our students, right? We're looking for the current needs of each group of students, and we're applying strategies, and we're providing content for that particular group. But the problem is that when we constantly give specific content to specific groups of students, we are inevitably causing the gap between the lower students and the average or advanced students to become much bigger, right? Think about it. The other students continue to move on while the lower students continue to miss out on grade level or on level appropriate work. So essentially by differentiating, we're actually just prolonging the gap that we're trying to close. Now, this doesn't mean that there is not a time and not a place for actual small group instruction intervention. Absolutely. I believe in Tier 2 instruction. I believe in Tier 3 instruction. 100%. This simply means that the teachers need to be very intentional about exposing all of the students to grade level content, right? So instead of only these kids getting grade level content and these kids are getting below level content, these kids need to get grade level content as well. They have to have it. Again, otherwise the gap is going to be there no matter what. All students get the grade level content, and then we support them where needed, right? So when teaching grade level content, there are ways to ensure that all of your students learn without having to differentiate or change the overall objective for the students who are struggling. So if the on-level students are working on identifying main idea and details, then your below-level students should be working on identifying main idea and details. It's just the scaffolding changes, the support changes. You know, maybe you're giving them sentence frames, or maybe you have pre-highlighted options in the text. And so instead of going back and analyzing the entire text, like the rest of the class is, they're going back and analyzing certain sections. They still have to figure out what is what. They still have to do the same thinking. You just narrow down where to look, right? There are different scaffolding approaches to give those students where they're able to do the grade level content just like everyone else. Therefore, allowing them to fill their holes and get grade level content at the same time, right? So this lies all in the scaffolding that takes place. Believe it or not, Tier 1 instruction is the most important. You cannot have successful Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction without Tier 1. So if you're not giving them tier 1 instruction, if they're not getting it, then tier 2 and tier 3 instruction is just like doing random things that really isn't supporting the student. Make sure you don't have to worry about differentiating everything. Think about scaffolding and ways to support the student rather than actually differentiating everything that they do. All right, friends, we have made it through all of our misconceptions, all 4 of mine, I should say. So I know I posed this question at the beginning. What are your misconceptions? Or what other misconceptions are there that you think teachers have about teaching reading comprehension? That's the final reflective question that I would love for you to answer in the comments below before we go. Thank you so much for joining. It was so great to have you here tonight. All right. Bye, friends. Have a great evening.